But I do want to say to the men that had the courage to stand up, to the worship band who puts everything on the line every day, and everybody that goes out of their way to serve here day in and day out, no matter what time of the day it is, and Pastor Mark, the fact that you lead the herd no matter what obstacles are standing in your way, I just want to thank you all because of what you guys do. That's the reason why I'm inspired today. Yes. All right, I think I got this thing. So I guess we'll start from the top. How I first started. I'm born in Ohio. I don't like to mention that to anybody. In Miami. But I was just born there, guys. All right, so I lived there for about a year, and then from there I moved to Georgia. Lived in Georgia for about 11 years, and, things started going south with my mom and dad. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad worked in downtown Atlanta most of his career. And, the businesses, they just couldn't keep up with modern-day society. They kept going under. And before you knew it, it was just time to sell the house. And my grandmother on my mother's side lived in Naples, along with my mother's sister. So we sold the house, we sold everything, and we moved to Naples, Florida. For me, it was no problem. I was tired of Georgia. It was time to go south. I wanted some beaches. We didn't have any beaches, so I'm like, I want to live the beach, salt life. There you go. So I come out, and FYI, I haven't been to a beach in like 4 years. So I come down to Naples, and we're living in a one-bedroom apartment with my grandmother, me, my mom, my dad, my brother, and we were alternating. Like one day, me and my brother would sleep on the pull-out couch, and then we sleep on the floor. And then when we sleep in my grandmother's bed, we would just all rotate for I moved in here August of 2000. And then we were doing that until December of 2000. And the night after Christmas, I guess we had a big fallout. My dad was drinking a lot, and he was working nights at Home Depot. So he went that night to go to work, and my mother and my grandmother had a big fallout. And later that night, my mother went outside, put a .22 pistol to her head, and she killed herself. So, woke up the next day. I was playing SmackDown 2, Shut Your Mouth. I don't know if you remember that game. I was I liked the game, but so that was like our man thing. We were all always into wrestling and stuff like that. So I remember waking up playing a video game, and then I just see the whole family walk in, and they lied to us. And I understand why, because I was 11 at the time. My brother was 6. So at that time, they were just trying to protect us. And they told us that she passed away from a brain tumor. So I remember being in the viewing and looking at my mother's body. And I remember holding her cold, and her body was rock solid. But they covered the wound up so well, I couldn't see the wound. So even in that moment, me and my brother were the only ones that didn't know what really happened. So I want to say about 2 weeks after that, that's when I remember waking up one night. My father finally broke down, and he told me. And from that point on, my dad was working nights. We ended up getting a place, and I had to grow up fast. I had to watch my brother at night, so that way my dad can go to work. I would get everything ready for the next morning, and then we would get up, go to school, and it was like that for a while. And I would say until about 12, the age of 13, I got involved in the wrong circle. I was surrounded by people who were smoking weed, doing drugs, and next thing you know, my house was available. My dad was working nights. They'd come over the house, I'd get messed up. Not to mention, my dad was drinking, so on Friday, Saturday nights, when he had his friends over, he had liquor, alcohol, you name it, we were doing it. I remember, I want to say about the age of 14, I was doing coke, breaking in houses, selling drugs. I remember breaking in people's houses, coming up on technology, and turning around and going to a crack dealer, selling him the technology, and then going to my weed and coke dealer to re-up and sell work at the age of 14, because I couldn't get a job, can't work at Publix. My dad didn't have money for shoes or clothes or nothing like that. So I had to figure it out on my own. So that's what it was. And then I was getting into fights left and right. There was gangs. I was getting into a fight with some gang called La Raza, I think. So, yeah. Let me tell you, man, I walked down the wrong alley one day, and there was like 13 of them, bro. I was like, man, how am I going to get out of this one? But whatever, we made it happen. Yeah, it was rough growing up. At that point, I started getting arrested a lot. I was in and out of juvenile detention centers from the age of 13 or 14 to 18. And I was in drug court for like 5 years. It's only supposed to be 1 year, but I couldn't seem to get that thing right. So, it was nonstop. I was shipped to Melbourne. I was shipped to Tampa. God, I feel like I'm going back down memory lane now. I just remember those moments being away. My dad never came to visit me. So, I just had to constantly get through life. It was like, it just became natural to the point that in my mind, it was just all about survival. It was just getting through the day with or without anybody there. Without my father, without a mentor, without anybody. I felt like it was just me for a long time. But I do remember throughout my journey, there was always a Bible somewhere, whether it was in a jail cell, whether it was at school, or somebody who had God in their life. God always sends somebody in my life or something to let me know that he was there at all times. But I was young, and I believed in him, but I didn't know how to seek him. I didn't know how to reach him. Even though he was there the whole time, I just didn't understand how to communicate with him. So I never gave it an effort. And I remember at the age of 18, I became an adult. So now I went from being in and out of juvenile detention centers to being in and out of county jails every 3 to 6 months. I want to say at the age of 21, I spent my 21st birthday doing a year in the county. And then I want to say about 22 or 23, that's when I really caught a charge where I was looking at 15 years in prison. And by the grace of God, only God got me out of that. But, somehow he was able to get a charge dropped to where my points didn't score out to prison. And so they had to give me another year in the county. And once I got out of that year, I was still getting into trouble. We moved to Fort Myers. And then I remember moving to Fort Myers. I moved into this rough neighborhood. I always ended up in a rough neighborhood. That's why Overtown's like home to me. So, but I remember moving to this rough neighborhood, and I ended up at the wrong place at the wrong time. Or maybe it was the right place at the right time. Who knows? But I remember going down this avenue, and I ran into the Latin Kings. It just happens this way. But I remember there was like 13 or 14 of them. There was a lot of them. And they jumped me and my brother. I remember one of these guys pulled like a steel rebar pipe, and he just took it, bam, hit me upside the head. I had 23 staples in the back of my head, so you can't really see the scars back here, but they're there. And I remember that moment. I thought it was over, but somehow God gave me the strength to get through that moment. He didn't knock me out. He didn't kill me. So I had the ability to get away, thanks to God. And I want to say about 2 weeks after that, I met Holly. And my life changed little by little. I mean, it didn't change overnight. Your success path, your journey, you evolve as you go throughout life. And at that moment, I didn't understand the lifestyle she was living, but I knew I wanted to be a part of it. She was going to college. She had a solid relationship with God, and she was still figuring out life. She was still young, and so was I. I met her when I was 24, but her mindset was in a much better place than mine was, and I knew I wanted to be a part of that, and so that's when the chuleta story came into place. I will never forget that chuleta, let me tell you. And let me tell you, I don't like them thin cut. I don't like them thin cut. I like the thick ones, but for some reason, I like that thin cut one that she had that day. So it really drew my attention. But, God has a way of closing doors in your life. I mean, I felt miserable at the same time because it's like I couldn't find a job because of my record. I couldn't find this out in Fort Myers. I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why can't I get to where I want to get to? I want to live a normal lifestyle. I just want to get away from this. But that's because God was closing his door because he knew it wasn't going to work for me in Fort Myers. He knew he had something lined up for me. So he had to close those doors so that way I would walk right into this door. You know what I mean? So God put me, we moved to Hialeah. I found a job in 2 weeks. Hey, baby. Hey, let me tell you, I love Hialeah. I don't care. A lot of people talk a lot of smack about Hialeah, but I love Hialeah. All right. All right. Except for the traffic. But other than that, we're good to go. So we moved to Hialeah. I got a job in 2 weeks doing fire sprinklers. She got a job, and we just started slowly progressing. But even still, and that's when I met Pastor Mark, as a matter of fact. And I remember hearing the story. You were preaching the sermon about how do you want people to remember you? And I remember that, and I'm like, oof. I heard that message, and I'm just like, how do I want people to remember me? How do I want my family to remember me? Do I want to just be remembered as a convicted felon, or do I want to prosper in life? Does God have something else planned for me? And I remember fully devoting my life to Christ. Well, not fully, and I'll get to that point in a minute. But for the most part, I surrendered my life to Christ, and, I wanted to seek him day in and day out. And then I started living that lifestyle. And then before you know it, I went from being a drug dealer and a drug addict and alcoholic, and now I'm a family man, a father of two. I'm married. I have a career. I'm a superintendent now. And I have my own house that by the grace of God, you would think, yeah. So God knew what he was doing. God knew what he was doing. And it sounds great, but it doesn't end there. That wasn't enough. That was just a part of the reward. And I ended up getting into this lifestyle where it's just, like you said, Alex, you go to work, you come home, feed the kids, take the dogs out, go to bed, start over again. And it was like that for so long, and I'm just like, this can't be it. You know what I mean? This can't be it. This is not what God wants for me. God blessed me with this to get through, but I feel that there's something missing. I feel that I'm not living to my full potential, that this is not who I am. And that's where my experience comes in with call and the mandate. And it made me realize, man, I've been going to church for 7 years, and I know most of you guys from church, but we never really got to know each other. We never really had fellowship with one another. We've never created a brotherhood with one another, and we're brothers in Christ. You know what I mean? So it's like, I didn't experience that until this event. Man, I got to know guys like Luke, Gio, Rodney, AJ, George, Justin, Mark. We all got to know each other on another level. The list goes on. And there's people that are not here that, they're forever in my hearts, and they're probably out doing what they have to do right now, and it's okay. But, man, let me tell you, I have never cried so much in my life. and let me tell you, it gets even better. I have never been in a room surrounded by a bunch of men who have cried that much in my life. I have never experienced that. Man, let me tell you, that man has a gift. And he just, it made me realize that I was living day-to-day life with a mask. I figured this is how it had to be. Yes, I surrendered my life to Christ. Yes, I'm walking with God. But at the same time, I never really dealt with the unfinished business I had in my life. I never dealt with my mother's loss. I never dealt with the fact that I lost my father about 3 years ago. I've never dealt with that pain. I've never dealt with the fact that, I've just been living day-to-day life just trying to survive, until I went to this event and I surrounded myself with my brothers. And let me tell you guys, all right, to get to this event, man, can I tell this story now? All right, the enemy tried so hard to stop me from coming. I told the guys when we were there, but that week the pipeline shut down that I went to the event. My gas tank was on E. I couldn't find gas anywhere. I'm like, I needed gas because this is the vehicle I'm taking to the event. And I'm like, I couldn't find gas. Just so happens that God led me to a gas station in a line. I'm talking backed up. It took me about 45 minutes to get gas. By the time I got to the pump, that was the last bit left in that pump. You know what I mean? Like that. And it gives me chills a little bit because it's like, this is how this story is real. I cannot kid you on any of this. And I remember my wife just so happened to have school that Friday, Saturday night. And, we have 2 kids, 2 dogs. So, that kind of load on her shoulders, she needs a second person. So we were able, thankfully, her mother was able to step in. Our grandmother, is a great person. She stepped in as well, helped us out. So we cleared that up. Work, it was getting to the point to where, I don't know why, a lot of jobs just started popping up at once, and they needed guys, and I had to hurry up and schedule guys and do the schedule. So it was kind of getting me tied up at work. I couldn't leave, and they were trying to keep me late. And I'm like, listen, and this was the day of. And I'm like, yo, I got to go. So finally, I just kind of left it, and I was like, y'all figure this out. And I, could have lost my job, but I don't care, because I felt the more and more that life was trying to hold me back, the more it made me realize I need to be at that event. I had to be at that event, and so I went. And it just so happens, yes, and my wife, I love my wife, she's amazing, but that day, she decided, and I know we needed groceries that day. We needed to stock up. They needed food, and it was gonna be hard to go to Walmart with the kids. But man, she practically bought the whole store that day. I'm telling you, man. I had to load up. I'm sitting there waiting for that order, and it was just barrels full of stuff. I'm just like, bro, I got to go. You know what I mean? Like, I got to go. So I'm loading the groceries up. I'm loading the truck up, and then we're going. I drop them off at the house. I'm like, yo, I'm just going to set them right here. You can do it. I get my bag ready. I hurry up, jump in the car, go. As I'm on I-95, I call my wife. I tell her everything. She was like, did you bring your towel? No. Because you got to have your towel and stuff like that, for the event. I'm like, so, excuse my language. But, yeah, bro, so I stop by Broward Boulevard, get the towel. It's rush hour traffic. I'm stuck in traffic. I'm like, oh, my gosh, bro, they're going to kick me out. I'm not going to make it, you know what I mean? Finally, I get the towel. I go up. I'm going to turn on that avenue. I kid you not. Either somebody whacked the gas line or something on the street I had to turn down, so you got 3 fire trucks and a police car blocking off the street that I need to turn down. I'm like, bro, are you kidding me, man? I know I got to be here, man. So I'm like, I'm taking the shortcut. We're going to figure this thing out, baby. So I turn around, I get to the event. Sure enough, everybody's late. So I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. So we get there, and sure enough, we share the story. I connect with the guys, and let me tell you, that event, it really it hit home for me because in the first night first night wasn't as impacting. Well, it was, but it wasn't. But the exercises weren't as impacting, and I feel that it wasn't because of the exercise itself. It was because of us. Because we were still just trying to figure out what this was all about. And us men, we live in our shell. It's like you said, we're the providers, we're the leaders. We're just looking for the solution. We're trying to figure things out. So we're constantly, we got to be the tough guy, and we're just sitting here waiting until he gets to the point. But then slowly he started breaking us down, and we started opening up, and we started getting to know each other. And then in that night, like something happened in that event that didn't sit well for me. And I started, like kind of losing my way and kind of going back to my circle to where it's like, yeah, I got to go. It's like, for me, it was hard to open up with a bunch of guys. It was hard for me to be vulnerable. And when it got to that point, I didn't know how to do that. So automatically, my solution was go home. So I packed my bags. Everybody was sleeping that night. Nobody knew. Packed my bags. I left. Woke up the next day. Phone's blowing up. Mark was looking for me. Everybody, let me tell you, give this man a round of applause. And the reason why is because we have a pastor that will leave the 99 just for the one. And that's what he did for me. I was ashamed to go back. It was tough for me to go back. I was like, I can't. I kind of messed up the event for everybody. And he was like, him and Jonathan were like, you have to go back. You're going back. They came to my house. They showed up. Mark took a picture of my front door. He was like, yo, where you at? I'm outside, bro. I'm like, yo, you're in the mafia, bro. I'm like, how'd you know where I live? So he came. He got me back. And as we're going back, I'm thinking the worst, And then next thing you know, I walk in, and there's all the guys standing in a circle clapping their hands. And they come up, give me hugs. They welcome me. And that moment is when we really opened up. That moment is when we really connect. And I got to tell you guys, for the ones, and I went to a lot of events, and it just never sat well for me. It was more than just an event. God knew what he was doing. God always knows what he's doing. When he built the temple, and the stones had to be a certain way, and the nails had to be a certain way, there was a purpose for that. God plans with a purpose in life. And he put us all there because he knows iron sharpens iron. And we were sharpening each other as brothers in Christ. And we were helping each other. A lot of us were battling so much in isolation that only us as individuals and God knew. But when he brought us together, he knew what was going to happen. He knew what was going to be the outcome. And now I can look at a room full of brothers today, and I know that whenever I need them, I can call them. And whenever they need me, they can call me. They can show up at my house. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. Just knock on the door will open. You know what I mean? And the same here. So for the guys who haven't been, I'm a very direct kind of guy. So don't take this the wrong way. I'm not asking you to go. I'm telling you to go. It's gonna make a better man out of you. You're going to become the man that God is calling you to be. There's two different kinds of men. There's a man we think we should be, and then the man that God is calling us to be. That's the man you truly want to be, because God will reward you in abundance. I'm telling you. And I'm a better husband now. I went home, and I think I texted my wife, like it was like Saturday night, like 1 o'clock in the morning. That's when the exercise finished on Saturday night. It was very intense that night. So I remember texting my wife. I'm just like, yo, I'm sorry. I never realized how distant I was from you. I practically shut down, and as women, they are there for, like, our wives are there for us to they're the neck, they're the director in our life. They give us direction, and they just want to be there. They need our vulnerable side. It's okay for us to be vulnerable, and I didn't experience that until that event. And when we're not vulnerable, we're not allowing our wives to do their part. You know what I mean? So then it makes them feel undesired, and that's how I made you feel. And I'm sorry. So now, I stand here today sharpened, more equipped, more ready for what God has planned for me and us as a church. I have never experienced a church like this in my life. God knew what he was doing when he put this together, and I know that the best is yet to come. I really do. And I'm going to end this. I always like to end in scripture, if I can get this phone open. Takeaway verse for today is going to be Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. He will never let you down. And when he calls you to go, go. When he tells you to take that next step, take it. It doesn't matter what your boss says. It doesn't matter what anybody says. If he tells you to go, he is the leader of our lives. He is the king above kings. He is the creator, he is the Alpha, and he is the Omega. So he knows from start to finish how it's going to play out. It is up to us to walk in faith. Thank you, guys. Love you.